David Sabih, and the last name is Sabih in Arabic, which means early morning.
Okay, can you tell me about where you were born and the neighborhood you lived in?
Yes, I was born in 1935 in Baghdad, the area of Baghdad called Battaween, which was like an upper scale area of Baghdad, equivalent to Beverly Hills here.
And can you tell me about your father, his name, and what he
Yes,
did?
my father is Salman, and he was a lawyer. And my mother, Hanini, of course, she was a housewife because women in the Middle East at my time, they didn't work. It was a dishonor to a man for them to work.
It's amazing that your father was a lawyer. That's a position of power. Did he have authority in the community?
Actually, a lot of authority because he represented the son of a sheikh who killed someone in a rage. And my father was able to get him out acquitted, because in Baghdad at that time they used the common law because they were under English rule before. And he was acquitted on the ground that he was drunk, that he used what was called the MacNaughton rule. So all the sheiks became very enamored, and he would represent them and everything. He was like a Muslim to them.
Did you grow up interacting with Muslims?
Yes, my neighborhoods had a lot of Muslims, and I attended a private school run by the Jesuits, of all things, from San Jose. They were headquartered, and it was a school that was a lot of wealthy Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
And did you experience discrimination at school at all?
No, none whatsoever. Until the pogroms that occurred, I never even knew about discrimination against the Jews.
And you were treated fairly by your teachers?
Yes, very well so. I was treated phenomenal by everyone. As I said, I would have never known if it wasn't for the killing of a lot of Jews in the pogroms. I would never have known that.
Can you talk about the Farhud and what happened to your family?
Yes, as I was saying, I was totally unaware. I was living in a bubble, and my aunt from my mother's side, Aunt Masouda, was an obstetrician, so she delivered a lot of the children for the Muslims. And when the pogrom started, they came in to protect her. And she told them where everybody lives, because my mother had 10 brothers and sisters. So they went and protected all of them. And I remember about 10 Muslims with guns and machetes came in to my house at Battaween and put a ring around the house so nobody could come in.
What happened after the Farhud? Do you remember going and seeing the Jewish quarter after? What are your memories of the days immediately following the Farhud?
Well, of course, I used to go every week, maybe 2 or 3 times. I used to bicycle to my Aunt Masouda. We were very close, and I was a very observant Jew, so we went to the synagogue a lot, and especially on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. So I don't have a good memory as to what happened to the Jewish community, but there was some changes, some fears, and things like that. But there wasn't any burning or something like that you would know. At least I didn't see it.
So you grew up in an observant home.
Yes.
Can you talk about the Iraqi tradition of Judaism and how rooted it is? And
Yes. Well, we, of course, never ate any pork or bacon or any of that sort. We had a courtyard where, let's say, when I was sick or somebody was sick, they would bring in a goat or a chicken and slaughter it and say, this is the offering, for your health. I recall on breakfast we always had chicken liver and eggs, and then at lunch we always had onions and pita bread, and so our food would be what I've been reading lately called the Mediterranean diet, a lot of olive oil and things like that.
What was your favorite holiday growing up?
Well, I really can't tell you what my favorite holiday was. You know, I think the more likely the Seder, because we opened the door to the house and we were all expecting Elijah. And I would remember we would have at least about 20, 30 people coming to the house, not from my family, but all the strangers who did want to eat. So we had a lot of food for them. And my father was well-to-do, so we had 3 living servants, and these servants, I remember them always cooking the food for these strangers for the Passover.
So life was good in Iraq for your family?
Yes, very, very, very good. As far as the amenities and the comfort, it's even more than the United States for me.
Do you remember the poverty in the Jewish community at all?
No, because as I told you, my Aunt Masouda was obstetrician, so she lived fairly well off, and I would go visit her, and my uncles, they were middle class, not rich, but they had their own factory to make shirts. They were sewers, they were machines. I remember they always sewed, and they had people working for them. So I haven't ever seen any poverty in Baghdad, really. Maybe I was in a bubble.
Do you have memories of the Tigris River and going swimming?
Yes, no, not swimming, but we always used to go Fridays to a hotel called Shahrazad, which was on the Tigris River, and they would have sticks in the ground, and they would put the fish on it, and there was fire, and they would do the fish, and they would put the curries. And so we always had that every Friday evenings, plus the ice cream.
Do you remember 1948 when Israel was...
Yes, and there was a lot of news and everything, and I was told to hush and not to say anything about it, because I remember the Warren Buffett of the Jews in there was arrested on the ground, accused of being supplying arms to the Zionists, and they hanged him in the streets of Baghdad. So that was very impressive on me that they had this problem, you know, that to see a body hanging as I went to school. So that was the thing that really scarred me about what it means to be a Jew in Iraq.
Were there riots in the streets in 1948 at all?
Not that I recall, no. But there was all kind of news. If you listen to the radio, which I used to do because I loved it, there was always having what's called bulletin number 22, bulletin number 24. They just shot down 25 Israeli airplanes, and they all promised to go to Tel Aviv, and every Arab will have one blonde Jewish woman on one thigh and another woman on the other thigh. That's they always talked about it.
Did you belong to like a Zionist organization or any kind of Jewish organization?
No, I didn't belong to any Zionist organization or anything, but that deal of seeing the Jew hanging altered me, and I started, one of my cousins, he had connections to the Joint Distribution Committee, and he said, well, we could get out of, to go to Israel. And I wanted that. My parents didn't want it, but I wanted that. And eventually, about 10 of us, not from my family, I plus others, I didn't know that, we went on a train to Kirkuk, and then they took us a bus, and just before the Iranian borders, the police arrested us and brought us back to Baghdad.
And what happened when they brought you back to Baghdad?
Well, my father was wealthy, and money always did a lot of things in Iraq, so he gave to the Mu'awan. Mu'awan was the head of the police, money. So they released me, and actually the Mu'awan came in the very next day to the house and had dinner with us. And they gave him more money, and the next day one of his lieutenants took me to a place near the border, and the Muslim tribe protected me. They put me in a house, actually a tent, so to speak. And then in the morning, they woke me up and they walked me to the hill which demarked Iraq from Iran. And I walked up the hill, and they told me where to go on a street. And I knocked on the door, and there was a Jewish guy, and he kept me there. And then the next day, there was a bus to Tehran, and in Tehran there was a camp with a joint distribution committee where you waited your turn to go to Israel.
How many people were in the camp? Was it a big camp?
I will say maybe over 1,000, and it was continuously shifting. People were coming out and everything, and I remember buses will take them to Tehran, to the airport, to leave. I know that I stayed about a month because I used to go to Tehran and eat their ice cream and things like that. It's been at least 30 days until my turn was to leave.
Was it all Iraqi Jewish people?
No, all kind of Jewish people. No, not Iraqis. I really don't know. I can't tell you, but I know it wasn't only from Iraq.
Were you by yourself?
By myself, yes.
What year was it? What year?
1952.
Was it a scary experience being in that camp?
Tell you the truth, no. Not that I recall, no. I felt safe at all times.
When you were in Iraq and you were caught at the border,
Yes.
and they brought you to prison, were you tortured or interrogated?
No, no torture whatsoever.
And who were the people who were smuggling you the first time before you were caught?
Well, some Jewish people that I didn't know, that they were from the Joint Distribution Committee. There was talk that the Arab guide betrayed us to the police and got some money for it, but I don't have any information on that.
Where were your parents? What were they doing when you were escaping?
Well, they knew that I was escaping, and they saw me off, and then as soon as they heard I was brought back, they came in and paid off the Mu'awan, and I got out.
Your wife told me that your parents were helpful in smuggling other Jews out of Iraq.
Well, they paid money. No, they didn't do the actual things. They paid money.
Do you know how many people they helped smuggle out?
Not really.
So, when you left Tehran, you went to Israel.
Yes.
And what was that experience like?
Well, we landed. They took us to a camp, and I left the camp that very day because I had an uncle, Uncle Shaul, already there, and I had his address in Bat Yam, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv. And I went to see him, and he welcomed me, and he stayed with him until I got my own accommodations. So I stayed in the camp like a few hours after we landed, and they took us and they gave us identity cards.
Was it shocking to arrive in Israel?
No, somehow it all felt like it's part of life, to tell you the truth. I didn't feel any unusual things or something. It was amazing when I arrived in New York, but when I arrived in Israel, it was just flowing.
Yeah.
Can I ask something? You said that it was in 1952, but most of the Jews left in 1950 and
Actually, I was just going to tell you it says 1950. The reason it's 1950 because I came to the United States in 55 and I was in Israel already 5 years.
So it's 1950.
Yeah, 19,
Before everybody left.
1950, yes. I was one of the early people who left, very early people who left. Yes, because I know my uncles came in a lot later after me, at least a year later. So it's definitely 1950 because I was in Israel 5 years. I went to the Technion for 2 years and I was in high school 3 years, so that's 5. And I came to the United States 55, so that's how I could chronologically put it down.
What about your parents? When did you meet up with them?
I didn't meet with my father, only my mother came in. And I'm not sure why, but all my uncles and aunts, all of them came in. And all the servants who lived in my house came in. I remember their name, Julia, Daisy, and Farha.
And your father stayed in Iraq?
Yes.
When did he
Passed away in the 80s.
Wow. That's amazing.
He stayed in Iraq until
Yes. Mm-hmm. I told you the sheiks loved him.
So what was he doing all?
I couldn't tell you, really. Connections were really gone.
Wow. He's one of the few.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And how was it for your mom in Israel?
Well, it was good because for the first time, because of the housing in Israel, then she lived with her sister Masouda together. Before that, my family always lived completely separate. They they had their own homes, every one of them.
Did you ever have any desire to go back to Iraq and get your father?
No, didn't have a desire. Once I came to the United States in 55, it's as if I've never been anywhere else in the world.
Why did you decide to come to the United States?
To go to school, because I always wanted best education possible. I came to the engineering school at City College of New York.
And was it easy to assimilate into the United States?
Very easy. I felt like I was born here, which I wasn't, of course. There was no problem whatsoever. I felt it's as if I've lived here for 1,000 years.
How have you maintained your connection? How have you maintained your connection to your Iraqi heritage?
Tell you the truth, I really haven't made any connections. I only meet now and then, like Saduk. I know a jeweler by the name of Moshe Cohen, which I didn't know in Baghdad, but my uncle Kaduri, when he came to visit me, introduced it to me. He lives now in Los Angeles, and so I've always, now and then, we talk on the phone and do the jokes that we used to know jokes in Baghdad.
When you look back, do you think that being born in Iraq has shaped your life in any way? How has it formed you?
Well, first of all, I've been a steadfast Jewish person, so I believe that I'm lucky that I'm Jewish, that I have good moral and ethical values. I hope I could live to 50% of that. And the experience with Israel and the Jews shaped me to the extent that I have to do everything for Israel, for a homeland, so that the Jews can have a place to go in case this thing happened again, you know. So that have been shaping me, maybe not consciously, but definitely subconsciously.
How did you maintain contact with your dad all those years?
I didn't,
At all?
no, wasn't able to,
Did your mother?
no.
I think we got through. You gave really straightforward to the straight answers. Do you have any other questions?
what's your strongest childhood memory from Iraq that you can talk about?
Well, the Yom Kippur synagogue, my grandfather, Yonah, was a rabbi from my mother's side. So when we go to the synagogue, and I was fasting completely, and fast is no water and no food. I don't know, some people in the United States, they have the liberty of drinking water. And so I was fasting since I was 5 years old until even today. When I fast, that's it. So all the pomp in the synagogue where I lived was a very, very ornate synagogue. And all the people who were the chazan and everything with the white beard and everything. And I remember the chanting. And that was very beautiful. You know, Shechianu v'gianu lazman hazeh. It was very, very beautiful, you know. I remember the Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah. Yes, it was very beautiful. And that way, year after year, same chanting. There was like a continuity, and where I feel rooted and comfortable that I know what to expect. And everyone was well dressed and singing and everything. And you're not even supposed to brush your teeth, or because no water is to contact you.
Well, you asked Sabih about what he has to say if he has something to say
Oh,
to
yeah,
Iraqis.
yeah.
That's a nice thing.
Do you have any do you need to switch anything up?
No, the message.
Okay. Do you have a message for, well, two questions, a message for your children about being Jewish and their Iraqi identity, and also a message to young Iraqis who are still in Iraq about Jewish people from Iraq?
I only have a message to my children, which I told them it's not about Iraq or anything, it's about Judaism. And that I always tell them that we've been taught you're judged by how you treat your help. And I know in my household, my help ate before me, and I try to teach my children that, and we always call the help meet my manager. We don't tell them servant or help. So that's the minor thing that I tell my children. And to one of the prayers on Yom Kippur that I remember from the synagogue, now that you jogged my memory, is from the prophet Ezra, to do justly and work humbly, love charity. So I teach my children that helping people is the most important thing in the world. I was taught privately because I did not go to a Hebrew school. I only went to the Jesuit school that I told you. So I was taught privately by a man, God rest his soul, called Rev Chaim. He wasn't a rabbi, but if you're learned, you're called Reb Chaim. And when you said about my memory of Iraq and what I learned, yes, I learned to respect the people who teach you, because when Rav Chaim will come every day in the afternoon after school to teach me, the help will say, Sheket, Rav Chaim ba, be quiet, Rav Chaim is here. So that taught me that the teacher is a lot of respect. So that's how I remember the bar mitzvah, not about the pomp and the circumstance in the synagogue, but the significance of Rav Chaim teaching me a lot of the good moral and ethical value of Judaism. And he would teach me, which I tell my children now from the Talmud, is about you're judged by not where you are, but the journey you travel. So the idea is, if you're a millionaire and you give $1,000 to charity, is not as meaningful as someone who has 10,000 and gives $100 to charity. So that's the memories of my Rav Chaim teachings, which have stayed a lot to me today. We could stay here for days to tell you, because he taught me for a whole year.
What was one more lesson that he taught you that you remember that sticks with you? Do you remember?
Well, what he stuck by me, that which I really feel today, and when I do something good, people thank me and everything, like I contribute to the United Jewish Appeal because they saved my life, is that when you do good things in life, whatever their nature is, helping people or giving to people, you're really giving to yourself because you feel good. So I've learned that I always feel good when I do something good. That's an important lesson I learned from him.
So can you talk, just to wrap it up, I think about your assimilation into the United States. You've obviously had success. You went to great schools. What have you done? I mean, what's your career path, and what's the legacy that you're in the process of leaving?
Well, I don't know about legacy. I don't believe in legacies, but I definitely, the United States has been very welcoming to me. I went to great schools. And the engineering school was only $1 a semester in New York with health insurance. UCLA engineering was $50 a semester. UCLA Law School was $100 a semester. So I got all the benefits of great education, taxpayer funded. And yes, I'm assimilated very well. I know that I'm Jewish, but I can talk to anyone that will care to talk to me about. And as far as legacy, as I say, I don't think much about legacies as much as I was treated wonderfully here. And if I could treat people coming my way 1% how this country treated me, I would be amply rewarded.
I think you're a really great example of someone who had to flee their homeland but overcame all of that adversity that forced you to leave, and you've risen up and you've done extremely well for yourself. You have 5 children. If you had a message to other refugees who are forced into camps or who don't have a place and they can't seem to rise up, what's your message to them?
Well, that they got to be grateful for every minute of life, because no matter how bad their situation is better than some people who said their legs were chopped or their eyes were gouged by Hussein in Iraq, and that as long as they have their health or any part of their health, eventually they could make it, because the opportunities are there and you never know when it will come, the opportunity. You never know. So the idea is just to be alive is such a big thing, but for the grace of God, you never know. I may be bicycling after you leave and I'll be killed by a truck or something. So the message is, it's terrible what's happening to people who are displaced or refugees and everything. I can't say that I experienced that, because somehow things went very fast for me, but I could imagine how awful it is. And as awful it is, they really have to believe that there's God and that the next minute is going to be better. It's like after the rain, there's going to be sunshine. It just is, you know? And we have seen a lot of sick people became healthy, you know? So we've seen many people liberated. I'm praying that the people in Syria be liberated soon. You know, we're seeing them. I'm hoping that the North Korean get liberated so they stop eating rats and something. So hope is eternal, and I know it's true. It comes to be a fact, you know?
Anything else? Any final thoughts? Any memories that I'm not asking the right questions?
No, you asked all the questions. You jogged a lot of my memory.
Tell them what your market is and what you used to eat when you go to the
Well, the market, of course, is incredible. Actually, one has to be like in Istanbul to see it. It's all narrow alleys, and they sell everything, and everything is very fresh. And I remember they come in by my house and jingle the bell, the guy with the pita bread and string beans and onions and tomatoes and cucumber kind of sandwiches, you know. It was very healthy, but we didn't have refrigerator in my time. We always had to have ice, you know. There, maybe in America there was, I'm sure, but in Baghdad there wasn't when I was born. So, but it's the same thing as market here.
And then in the summer when it was hot, you would go into
Well, the homes, at least where I lived in, it's like 3 levels. The level that we're sitting here, where the bedrooms and the kitchen and everything, and there's always a cellar because we didn't have air conditioning. It gets very hot, and the cellar will be cold. And I remember they would have iced watermelon. And above is the roof. The roof is flat, and there are beds in it, and we would sleep in the summer there. So there was, you know, there were beds, and you sleep there, and you see the skies and everything. Of course, there was no smog, and you see the stars and everything.